You've heard of an October surprise. And now it's the May surprise in a primary election. And if you were listening to this show, it was no surprise. I'm Jim Babka. This is Instant Grace, kind of a mini version of Grace Archie with Jim Babka. And I come to you today with a heavy heart because Tom Massie has been accused by his opponents who have made a fraudulent video from what we can tell. And it's not surprising. We knew this kind of attack was coming. In fact, I told you it was in a episode we released on December 10th, but I actually recorded these words on December 5th. The super PAC money will be spent to destroy his reputation, destroy him in anything that they could possibly come up, even if they've got to invent it and make it up. And in fact, there may be a May surprise that's worse than all the other things that they say from January to April. Right before the primary is over, a week or two out, something even worse might drop down. And my prediction is that because of this prison gang mentality, because people are sucked into this existential conflict machine thinking they have to win, they have to defeat the libs, so to speak, that there will be people who were once in the Tea Party who will betray him. And it won't be a small number. It'll be a lot of people. And they did it. Check out this convoluted story. And you're going to need to understand by context that in June of 2024, Thomas Massie's wife, Rhonda, passed away tragically from an autoimmune disease that apparently had attacked her lungs. And just a few weeks later, I was sitting with him, and the grief he was carrying was obvious. But he's continued to soldier on and do his work. And he has remarried since. But a few months after, he may have started a relationship with a woman. And we're going to get into how people are judging that in just a second. But the story that's being told is that he helped her get a job in a congressional office. They hired her under a 90-day probationary system. They decided not to extend her employment. She left abruptly. She since filed a claim to say that she was wrongfully terminated, has asked for or demanded money. And apparently somewhere along the line, $60,000 was the settlement number that was on the table, but all of this is unclear right now as to the truth of this. On top of this, in an interview that has been circulating online, she claims that Tom Massie offered her $5,000 to not mention his name in that case, claims that she was asked to do something that she wasn't comfortable about, and says that the $5,000 that he was offering to give her came from cow money because he has a farm with cows on it, and that he doesn't report that to the IRS. Now, the story is patently absurd, and people are already confusing it terribly, saying, oh my gosh, Tom Massie offered her $60,000 because he did something really naughty or bad or evil sexually with her. There's no evidence for any of that. And a mutual friend who knows both parties has come out to say that if Tom Massie gave her $5,000, it was to help her move beforehand. It wasn't after all of this had gone down, that he was really trying to help her. Massie himself, for his part, has shared the following factoid, and I'm quoting from him. The contrived and false deposition released just 1 week before my election was conducted by Kerry, who lost to me in 2012, in the law office of McMurtry, who lost to me in 2020, and posted immediately by Dieters, who lost to me in 2024. And by the way, who remains incredibly active at trying to find any piece of mud or shame or scorn that he can hope to turn into something against Tom Massie. All you have to do is go to his social media profiles to see how hell-bent he is. But I told you that there would be this May surprise and that it would be a direct attack on his character. And they would go so far as to even make stuff up if that's what they needed to do. And given what I've already just shared with you, just this tiny bit, you should be able to see that that's obvious. But this is Grace Archie, and I want to go a couple steps further. First, I want to say politics is not graceful, it's war. And it's very, very hard to keep your character, to stay philosophical, to even be Christian pure in this environment, because it's all about an existential need to win at any cost. And that means all ethics, all principles, all humanity gets chucked out the door in the hopes of trying to achieve a victory in the race. The people that are out to get Massie have spent over $10 billion on ads and God knows how much in dark money, getting people, including the former Secretary of State of Ohio, to distribute dirt on him on repeated occasion. This is a very high stakes race. No individual has been targeted by their own party in a primary at this rate, at this financial level in U.S. history. And it's because, for the most part, he's managed to stay by principle. So it's very hard to practice grace in this, and it's very, very easy. Almost always happens that people lose their character, and it also attracts people of low character. And I think this situation evidences that. But the second thing I want to say is that I thought people had grown up in the 1990s and early 2000s and 2010s. I thought we were all growing up about sexuality. We were finally learning how to be adults about this subject. And we were beginning to realize that consenting adults do things, and that's the way the world works. And it really isn't our business. It doesn't have a whole lot of impact on us. And yet, people are saying things about Tom Massie, who, as I just explained to you, lost his wife, Rhonda, in June of 2024. Tragic, sad, and a couple of months later meets this woman who is being used more. She's really vague in the video, is being used to traffic these rather convoluted and mixed up on purpose. They want to mislead, to make things look worse, things. And one of the conclusions that people are drawing is that he had, quote, an affair. I've seen that word thrown around, but his wife was deceased. That's not an affair. He's now a single man. And that he somehow or other was just kind of weird and he's strange and he can't be trusted because, he wants to be with another woman when his wife just died a few months before. Well, I don't understand that line of thinking. My wife, Susie, has told her family twice, she's brought this up. She's joked with them. She said, Jim is free to bring a date to my funeral. And it's a funny line, but it also is true for both of us that we want the other one to be happy. And I just want to tell you a brief story because I've told the story before of my mother being killed. The anniversary of it was just this week. And I was 10 years old at the time. And one day, after that happened, my father, who had to be a single parent all of a sudden, we were making trips every day to the hospital to visit my sister because she had been much more badly injured in the accident. He had to make sure I had lunch and dinner and my clothes were washed and I was gotten off to school. He had to do all this and he was doing a lot alone without my mom. We're at the grocery store one day in the parking lot. We ran into a guy who was kind of semi a neighbor. He lived in the same development and we knew of each other through different social circles. And he was going through a divorce. And the two men were standing there talking, and the other man said to my father that the thing that crushed him the most was the loneliness he was experiencing. And my father said, oh boy, do I know the loneliness. I'm lonely too. And I was 10 years old and I'm standing there. I'm like right there and I'm kind of offended. I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm right here. How can you possibly be lonely? And he said, oh, you don't understand yet. And you know what? He was right. He was right. And if you have someone in your life that you love and care about, that's your partner for life, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. If worse, you have been through their passing, you know 110% right in your gut what I'm talking about. Why would we sit outside and judge a man who's lonely for trying to find a little companionship? Why? Why? That's just sick. That's hateful. I'm not surprised that Tom Massie got attacked. And frankly, given the low character of IQ and the desire to want Tom Massie to be the bad guy because people would like to go along with Trump, whose sexual past is far more sordid by a million miles. I just can't relate. I'm sorry. I see people talk like this and I just can't relate. I've got to ask, when it comes to human sexuality, when will we become grown-ups, actual adults? When will we put ourselves in other people's shoes and stop judging and practicing grace instead?